What's up, gang? This is John Camacho from Kawila Motors coming to you from Oahu, Hawaii. And we are about to do our 2023 Electric Motion Escape R review. But before we get into that, I would just like to send a big mahalos to everyone out there who supported my channel, who supported Electric Motion USA, who supported Hawaii Rides. This has been a crazy journey, and I can't believe we've actually surpassed 50 bikes in the state of Hawaii. That is amazing. If I'm not mistaken, we have the most electric motion bikes in one state in the entire US. So thank you for everything. I hope these videos help out. And with that being said, we are going to get into our review video of the 23 Electric Motion Escape R coming at you. All right, so let's start. This is the new 2023 Electric Motion Escape R. Before we get into the details, I'm just going to do a quick walk around of the bike. Beautiful, bold new graphics, as they always say. But no, they've changed the color scheme up. And I'm going to do, I was thinking about doing a more in-depth video. And I will do that. But for the sake of this video, I don't want to shortchange our new viewers or the people who haven't gotten invested into electric motion yet. Like, for all you guys out there who have these amazing bikes already, you know what it's all about, and generally it's the same. But we're gonna start by doing a little review for the noobs. All right, awesome. So now that we got that out of the way, let's start from the top down like we always do, right? We have our meter here. This will tell you our battery percentage, and I'm running at about 80% right now. Doing a little running around with this bike, yeah. And then we'll go to this side. We have Hebo grips on the bike. We have our map switch to select green, blue, or red, and that allows us to switch the maps actually in time. So while we're riding, we can switch the maps. Not like the KTM free ride, unfortunately, you have to stop, you gotta do the programming thing, and then you can go. This one, as you riding on the fly, you can change. So that's the cool thing about this bike, and it has 3 modes. This gray button here is what you would call your FRB, or your fixed regenerative brake. Now this is actually allowing me to stay on the hill right now, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But basically what that does is it puts a reverse load on the motor, so when you're going downhill, you can actually press this button here, and what it will do is it will put a load on the motor and slow you down, but maintain your traction. And as you maintain the traction, you have more control, and you'll actually be making some power. And this regen actually works. It's not going to charge your battery to 100%, but it will. I mean, I've calculated almost 10% over the course of a 15-mile ride, which 10% is quite a bit to save or make back. So that's actually a really good feature. And Electric Motion, right off the bat, innovatively wise, has put this button on the bottom. In last year's model, this gray button was up here, and it was kind of hard when you're going downhill to press the button up here, that your hand would be like off the grip. So they've actually listened to a lot of the consumers and put it on the bottom. What I did on my 2022 was I flipped it upside down, and then it became just like this, and it worked great. So that's a good thing on EM's part. Now going over to this lever right here, if you're not familiar with what the Electric Motion is all about, Electric Motion is known for having the only electric bike with a fully functional mechanical clutch. Very important for trials bikes, and this Escape R is a trials bike with a seat, and they keep the same drivetrain, so you actually have a mechanical diaphragm clutch here, and you have a brake tech master cylinder, and that goes to your diaphragm in the drivetrain. Now, if you've ever ridden one, go check out. If you've ever ridden one, you understand what I'm saying. But check out some of our videos. Check out some videos by Chris Brand, who is actually riding this bike in the like a freestyle doing trials things with this bike, this clutch is what they say, it's fully functional. You can feather the clutch if you want good power distribution. You can spool up the bike, and that's really what it's for. It's really made to just dump, and you can get the front wheel up and you can do trials like maneuvers. Or if you're riding in trails and you just want to get over a log, instead of relying totally on your throttle, you can actually build up some inertia in the flywheel, let it go, and the bike will literally hop over a lot of stuff. And this is really what sets Electromotion apart from anything else. Is the clutch. Yeah, that's their true claim to fame right there. Okay, moving over to this side. Brake tech, master cylinder for the front brake, and when we get down there, you'll see it's attached to a 4-piston trials caliper, and that thing stops on a dime. And if you've seen some trials guys, you're literally stopping on the dime. Like, they can actually put it up on the nose and do any kind of stuff. So that's what that's for. Very, very good, very precise braking on the front. Now, this is one thing that's changed. This is your throttle. It's a ride-by-wire, so it's fully electronic. There's no gear in there attached to a pulley. There is a potentiometer and there is a gear here, but for the 2023, all 23s come with the domino throttle. Now, some of the 22s came with the domino throttle, but that was like the later ones. Formerly, it was a Magura throttle. And personally, the domino throttle, in my opinion, is a better throttle. It's a little bit more bulky as far as its size, but it's a lot better constructed than the Magura. And the feel is actually very, very good as well. It's very smooth. This one does not have the heavy-duty spring in it like some other dominoes that I've tried, and I'm not sure if it's an adjustment thing or if it's a model thing, but this one is very loose. If you've ever ridden the 2020 and up with the Magura throttle, the feel is similar, but the construction is better. Holding all the controls together is a Nikon handlebar, and previously in other models, the EM would come with the S3 World Competition handlebars. And for everyone out there, for the veterans out there who is wondering, I did do a comparison with the Nikon and the older World Comp, and the bend seems to be the same, width-wise, height-wise. I'm not sure about the angle this way, but it seemed to be almost identical. Nikon is a reputable company. You're not really skimping on quality there. You're still getting a quality handlebar for your controls. Of course, with the 2022 and earlier, you get these beautiful blue anodized triple clamps. Now, these things are gorgeous, and what they're attached to is aluminum tech forks. Now, these tech forks are basically the standard in most manufacturer trials bikes. TRS uses them, Gas uses them. I believe Montesa might use a Showa, but most of the time you're gonna get tech forks, and they're the standard for a reason. They're reliable, they're really smooth, they're good, very good quality, and easy to service. Yeah. You have a dual cartridge, so one is your spring, one is your compression, and one is your rebound, and you have full adjustments on the top, and you have some adjustments on the bottom for bleeding and stuff as well. Like I mentioned up there before, your front brake is tied to a 4-piston master cylinder by Brake Tech, and trials riding is a little bit different. You notice it's not like your enduro bike. For the size of the bike, the rotor is quite small, and it's because they're riding through the rocks, you know, they're riding up stuff. There's a very big chance of things getting damaged. And trials is not typically a high-speed sport. You know, it's normally a precise, slow, very, very slow, almost to the point where you're not moving, motorsport. And to have the brake up here is actually quite good when you go into the rocks, because you don't have to worry about knocking this caliper off normally when it's sticking out the back. Comes with this guard here, which is actually good enough for a lot of abuse that you'll see later as we put these bikes through its paces. And then it's also a combination by a floating rotor. So if you're not used to what a floating rotor is, there's actually a spacer and some washers. The rotor is actually is able to center itself on the wheel. So if you hear some rattling, it's normal. Okay. The thing about this bike, and a lot of people ask, is it a full-size dirt bike? And I'm saying it's a full-size trials bike. It's not a full-size enduro bike, but like a full-size trials bike, you get standard wheel sizes, which is 21 in the front, 18 in the back. So 21 in the front, you have a Michelin X11 competition trials tire on the front, and you have a Morad Spanish wheels to pair with that. The front is a tubed system, just a regular tube system. Okay, from the front, we're gonna move all the way to the back, and in the rear, you have one of the best tires on the market, a Michelin Trial Competition X11 trials tire. Now, I can't stress this enough, guys. If you're in America, which we are, and you have this tire, this is the only way you're gonna get this tire. The European market, for whatever reason, doesn't ship it to America. You can look online and find the X11 Lite, and you're gonna pay about 300 bucks for that tire. So this is the best alternative for that. I mean, this is a tire that you cannot even get, so cherish it as much as you can. Now, it's attached to an 18-inch wheel, like I said, and pardon the dirt, it was raining a little bit earlier today. But the 18-inch wheel is a little bit different, as you can see. You see this spline right here and the turnbuckle style spokes? These spokes do not penetrate the wheel. Therefore, the wheel is solid. Therefore, there is no tube in this tire. It's a tubeless system. Not tubeless, where there's the inner tube and the high pressure tube and the, and there's a cavity. No, this is a tubeless wheel. Trials tires have really thick beads, and that will allow you to run really low pressures in very technical situations when you need to for full grip, and it will not debead from the wheel. It's possible, but it's very unlikely. Looking at the drivetrain, they have a 57 tooth rear sprocket, and I'm glad they went with black. They went with black. The previous model was like a silver, but the silver in our red dirt clay would still get really dirty, so that I didn't care for too much. But I'm glad that they went with the black. They still have the black swing arm. They still have the black accented hubs. I kind of wish they just make the whole thing black. That would be easier for me to clean. And that's tied in all with the 428 chain. You have your tension guide here, and this is actually really good to set your tension. You just want about an inch of tension there, and you're good to go. Yeah. The now pegs, very important. Pegs. Most of the time with stock pegs, you get a cheapy one. This is a S3. It's actually S3 branded steel pegs. Now these things are solid. They're about the same size as the Hard Rocks, which I mean is aluminum pegs that are available. But they're really good. They're very sturdy, and they give you maximum grip, so you're not getting the cheapy equipment right off the bat. And this right here, this is the jewel of the system. This is your electromotion drivetrain. Now behind here, we have our motor, of course, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But right here, you actually have flywheel weights in here. And what you can do is you can actually take off some of the weights of the flywheel. You can adjust the weight to suit your riding style. Now as it is, there's one hub, and I believe there's 2 plates. I think you can take off, you can take off the 2 plates. You can even take off the hub if you want, but the riding characteristics of the bike will be a lot different when you're doing trials riding, or when you want to spool up the throttle and dump it. That inertia built up from the flywheel is basically unequivalent in the electric world. A lot of people think you don't need it, and yeah, it's true, you don't need it in every situation when you're riding in trail stuff. But when it comes to like just getting over a log or getting over a rock, just a little blip of the throttle is not always enough. If you spool up the throttle and you dump the clutch, which the diaphragm clutch is actually behind here, you get a way better response, similar to your gas bike. And the reason why I like the Escape R is because the motor connected to the primary drive, so the motor connected to the shaft here to our secondary drive, that gear is a gear-to-gear wet bath oiled mechanism. Now, what I mean by that is if you're familiar with Surons or some of the other stuff, they have a belt, some people have a chain. No. This one is a regular gear-to-gear. If you look in there, it's similar to any other trials bike or any other gas bike out there with a regular transmission. The gears are beefy, and because you have the option of the clutch, when you get into sticky situations or when you when you get advanced enough to pop this wheel and just slam it into a rock so you can get over it, because it has a clutch, the gear will handle that impact and you won't have belts to break, you won't have chains snapping, and that is really, to me, what you're paying for. You're paying for this technology, you're paying for the strength. You might not necessarily need it right now, but there'll come a time when you wish you had it if you had something else. And mounted to that drivetrain is the power right here. This is the power supply. This is a 50 volt 50 amp hour lithium ion battery. It is fully encased in an aluminum casing. It's solid mounted with these 3 bolts to the drivetrain. And if you're wondering, yes, the battery goes up all the way back here, past here, and down. So this whole thing is battery. The seat actually mounts to the battery as it's used as a support, a structural support. And that's how tough this battery is. I'm not gonna go out and say that the bike is waterproof, but we have gotten into some wet situations, and if you haven't seen those already, check out some of the other videos that we've posted, and the bike has always pulled through with no further damage. I didn't have to go home, I didn't have to tear everything apart and dry anything out. It's completely sealed, and the controller, as you'll see in other videos too, are sealed as well. Unlike some of the other controllers on the market where they mount it in the front, it's susceptible to all the rain, and of course it's susceptible to the deep water that we kind of all here in Hawaii, we kind of all like to go into. I don't know why, but we like to play in the water. Okay, tying everything together for the linkage and the suspension. It is a linked system, so there is a linkage and adjustment. You have a Ole shock back there, and it's a two-way adjustable, I believe, and you can adjust the spring compression and you can also adjust the rebound as well. We don't mess with it too much. I think I tried a bike with a little bit more compression for my weight, and that did help, but I'm about 200 pounds, I'm 5'8" only, but I think I could benefit from a heavier spring. This spring right here is, I think, sprung for about 180 pound, 190 pound person. So I'm just outside of that range. And I think that's why it works, but I feel like it could be better. All right, check down here below, guys. We have our TKO switch, and it's not our Tennessee knockout switch. I wish I could just switch this and win the race, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But the TKO stands for tick over. And what the tick over is basically electric idle. I'll demonstrate this in another video, but electric idle, and now they have tick over in green, blue, and red. So all 3 maps have tick over. Prior to the 22, where only blue and red had. Now the green, a little bit lower power with the tick over, but you can maneuver slower in tighter spots, and it's great for the beginner as well. And that's the good thing about this bike right here, is that it's kind of geared to the full range. One bike can satisfy a beginner as well as a highly skilled professional. All right, this is our on button here, and I'm gonna go over another video of real fine details, and I'm gonna list this in here. But you see this on button? This on button has now been covered with like a little rubber cap, and that is very good. So when you're cleaning the bike, you're not forcing water into that somewhat open switch. I assure you, from the backside, it's completely sealed up. I've seen inside of these batteries, but it's always good to have a little protection, and they've done that. They just added that to the bike. Okay, now flipping over to this side. I said the other one was the heart of the system, and I do think that is the most important part, but this is also a 50% of that as well. This is a Ashwood motor. Now look at the motor compared to the bike. Just take a good look at the ratio of motor to bike. It's ridiculous. No bike that I know of at the moment has a motor this size for a bike this small. It has 11 kilowatts of peak power, which by nowadays, if you're into the surround world and you're going into like 15 kilowatt KO motors and blah blah blah, it seems a little low. But I assure you, this motor is the smoothest motor on the market, and it puts out the most torque. And because it puts out so much torque, it's over torque for this bike. It's smooth. You're never pushing this motor to the max. When we took this bike to the Tennessee TKO, there was some really technical stuff. There was some faster stuff, and even in my hair scramble earlier this year, the motor never got hot. I mean, I've seen guys cooking eggs on their surround motors, but this motor never got hot. And just for all you nerds and geeks out there like me, this is a encoded motor. And for people who don't know what that means, encoded motors are basically just like a finer tuned sensor, so that when you do give it throttle, it will respond a lot smoother. It's just like having a 64 tooth ratchet versus a 32 tooth ratchet. It does the same job, but the 64 one, you can just dial it in just a little bit at a time and just have a better control and better feel at every position. Yeah, it really takes you to ride one and compare it to, say, another bike to really feel the difference. But that really is what the Electric Motion is all about. It's high quality. You do pay the price for it, but they don't skimp on components, and you basically get what you pay for. Now, also another feature of an electric bike that most people don't think of, or most people actually want, but they don't realize they want it until they have it, is a rear brake. Now, this is a Trials rear brake, so it's a lot smaller. It's not sticking out like an Enduro one. It's made for those tough stuff, but this rear brake is clutch when you're riding. I never used it very often, and then when I started using it, it was just a dream. Like I felt so comfortable on it, just like my regular dirt bike. And when I jump on my regular dirt bike, I have one as well. So nothing changes for me, and that's what I like. I like familiarity, and just because it's electric doesn't mean I got to give this up. They have it. And for trials riding, it's very, very important when you want to like stop in a very precise place, or you want to stop on the back wheel. The rear brake is very necessary for those types of movements and maneuvers. Okay, now following that back all the way to our rear brake here, and we have a Galfer rotor as well, same as the front. The front is a Galfer as well, and yeah, that is basically our stopping power for this bike. This is your charge port here, and it have a very good protective heavy-duty rubber cap that will protect the water from getting in. Like I said, this thing is sealed from the inside, so water does not really get into it much. Even if it does, you're okay. So thanks again, everybody, for checking out my video. If you like what you see, like I said, please subscribe. It would help out a lot. And also, I find a lot of joy in bringing this info to people. It's mainly because I like to ride the bike. It's not a desert rider. It's not a fast single track, but for the hard technical stuff and just to build my skill, there's no other bike out there that's like it. And the fact that it's electric means I can ride it whenever I want. So if I have, an hour and it's dark, I can still go out and practice something, which is the beauty of it, without pissing off my neighbors and whatnot. But yeah, please let me know if you like what you see. If you have any ideas for future videos, put that in the comments and we'll see if we can get that done. And most of the times I try to make videos based on the questions or things that I just learned that, I've never known since we started this journey together. So till next time, ahui ho, mahalo.